Almost missed that step. A little warm, so I'll turn this fan on here. Okay, be turning to 1 Kings chapter 12. We're going to study this idea tonight. It is too much for you. To get the setting of this story, if you recall, Jeroboam became king of Israel after the kingdom split. So the kingdom split because the people rebelled against Rehoboam, and so Rehoboam became king of two tribes, which we refer to as Judah, the southern kingdom, and Jeroboam became king of 10 tribes, the northern kingdom of Israel. And so he became king. So let's read now 1 Kings chapter 12, verses 27 through 29. And this is Jeroboam speaking. If this people go up to offer sacrifices in the house of the Lord at Jerusalem, then the heart of this people will return to their Lord, even to Rehoboam, king of Judah. And they will kill me and return to Rehoboam, king of Judah. So the king consulted and made 2 golden calves, and he said to them, it is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Behold your gods, O Israel, that brought you out of Egypt. He set one in Bethel, and the other he put in Dan. And so we see here that Jeroboam claimed it was too much for them to obey God and to follow his laws. The people were required to go to Jerusalem to worship God. And so it was too much. And so the devil here, of course, gave, no doubt to me, gave Jeroboam this idea, and he followed through with it. Now, Ahijah, the prophet, had come to Jeroboam and told him that he was going to be king over Israel. The 10 tribes would split away, and he would be king of them. And the Lord had told him through Ahijah that if he would follow God's laws and do everything and walk in his ways as David had walked in his ways, that he would give him an enduring house, and that he would be with him, and that he would give Israel to him. And so all Jeroboam had to do was to trust in the Lord and obey his commands. But instead, he decided to go a different way. Now, today, the devil wants us to believe it is too much for us to follow God's commandments. So I want to consider this idea tonight. It is too much for you. The first point is it is too much for you to attend worship. In Hebrews chapter 10, verses 24 and 25, it says, and let us consider one another in order to stir up love and good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as is the manner of some, but exhorting one another, and so much more as you see the day approaching. So here we see that we have a command. We have a command for us to assemble, and we are not to forsake that command. And we're also told the reason why we are to assemble. In the first verse there, it says, let us consider one another in order to stir up love and good works. You know, sometimes I see people when they're trying to show verses to support assembling for worship, they'll just use verse 25 and not use 24 with it. Really, when they do that, they're only given part of a sentence there, because both of these verses make up a sentence. So I would encourage you, if anybody ever asks you for the reason of the hope that's in you on this subject, that you would give them both verses, because it clearly tells us why we are to assemble, to consider one another and to stir up love and good works. Now, Satan will try to convince you that it is too much for you to do this. And he'll tell you all sorts of things. He will say, well, you are tired, so just stay home. There's no need in going because you're just too tired. You can't pay attention. You can't get anything out of it. And I can understand that. Satan will always use our weaknesses. He knows what our weaknesses are, and he will use them to his advantage. And a lot of Wednesday nights, I'm tired. I am very tired from working all day, but I make myself come in here anyway. And after sitting an hour and concentrating on the study, I feel better because of it. Well, first of all, I've had the first rest since probably lunchtime. So that helps to sit down and rest for a little bit. But also I engage my spirit and pay attention to what's going on. And my spirit is revived because of that. And so let's not let the excuse of tiredness keep us from coming to service. Well, the devil will say, well, that show that you like comes on tonight, so why don't you just stay home and watch it? You've been wanting to watch that show. Now, in the day of technology that we are in, and all the conveniences that we have, each of us has a DVR, and we can record that show and watch it anytime. We can watch it however many times we want if we want to watch it more than once. So that is not a good excuse to stay home and not come because you want to watch a show. Well, the devil will say, you went on Sunday morning. Isn't that enough? Well, the answer is no, it's not enough. Really, we never worship enough, because God has told us, even when we have done everything that we've been commanded, we're still unprofitable servants. We can never worship enough. But we choose to, we have picked out 3 times a week for us to meet. And you should be here every time. I would encourage you to always be here. Do you want to get to eternity and the Lord say, you didn't come to church enough? Because of that, you weren't prepared. Now, you don't want to hear that, do you? At the last day. Well, how about this one? It's the Super Bowl, man. Satan gets most of the world with this one, doesn't he? On Super Bowl Sunday, people don't go to church. It's especially the denominations, they don't go. And, like I said, in the day of the age of technology we're in right now, you can record that on your DVR. And I've done that for years and years, and I have not missed a Super Bowl. And I'm here every Super Bowl Sunday. You know that. I've not missed the Super Bowl because when I get home, I can watch from the beginning and see that whole game, and all the commercials too, if I want to watch them. And so that is not a good excuse for missing service. Well, Satan will say, it's just one service you'll miss. And while that might be true, he'll keep getting you with that excuse. The next time he'll say, well, it's just one service. And the next time, well, it's just one service. But he lies, because he knows if he can get you with this, he's going to continue to get you with this. And before long, you will miss all the services. So don't let Satan trick you into doing these things. It is not too much for you to attend worship services. It is not too much. In fact, it's the easiest thing you can do as a Christian. If you think about all the things that are required of a Christian, the easiest thing to do is to come to church services. It doesn't require that much effort to just get in your car and get here. There's a lot more things like abstaining from sin that are much more, that require a lot more from us than attending church services. And we meet 4 hours a week. 4 hours out of 168 hours in a week. That sounds like very little, doesn't it? It's 2.4% of your time. Can you give 2.4% of your time to the Lord? That's not much. The Lord is not requiring much of you. So set a goal and determine that you will be here every service. And don't let Satan deter you, because he likes to use things that are appealing to you, things that he knows are your weaknesses. He will always play on your weaknesses. So don't let him. And then after you come every time, then build on that by encouraging one another. Because like I said in the beginning, that's why we are here, to encourage one another, to consider one another, to stir up love and good works. And I encourage you, hopefully, by me being here, and you encourage me by you being here. And so we can always, even beyond that encouragement, say things to one another to stir up love and good works. The next point I bring to you is, it is too much for you to teach others. In Matthew chapter 28, verses 19 and 20, Jesus said, "Go therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Ghost, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I have commanded you." And so we see here that Jesus commanded his apostles to go and teach all nations and to baptize them and teach them to observe all the things that Jesus told them. And this becomes a perpetual thing, because as they did that, then the next generation of believers went and taught, and they baptized, and they taught those that they baptized to observe the things that Jesus commanded. And one of the things he commanded was to go and teach and baptize and teach them to observe. So this is a perpetual commandment that is handed down from generation to generation. So we are all required to teach. Well, who do we teach? We teach our children, our family, friends, neighbors, associates, and even Bible classes. Now, Satan will tell you it is too much for you to do this. And he gets you with a lot of good things. He will tell you, you don't have time. And while, teaching a Bible class does require some prep time, you can talk to either one of the Rons. I've even filled in. I know it takes some prep time. So it does take time. But we all have the same amount of time in a day. And, as far as talking to other people, friends and associates, how long does it take to plant a seed? Maybe a few minutes. Maybe just a few minutes. It's not that you got to sit down and spend hours with them the first time you talk to them. In fact, they probably don't want to talk to you that long. But as we're going along through our day, we should be planting some seed here and there, And if we're living the life we're supposed to, we're setting a good example so that when we do say something, they pay attention to us. They listen to it. Now, they may act as they're not listening. But, hopefully one day, some of that planted seed will hit a spark in their life. And they'll remember that. Or you'll say something to them on a day when it'll really matter. And something will stick. Well, Satan will say, "You don't know what to say." And you'll believe that. In fact, I've heard people make the excuse, "I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say to other people about this." And in fact, that might be true when you're first baptized, when you first become a believer. But a person that's been a Christian 10, 20, 30 years, if they're still saying that, there's a problem. That should not be something that comes out of our mouths when we're a mature Christian. Okay, so what do we do about this? Well, we should prepare lines that we could use with people. Like, do you know Jesus? Have you been baptized? You know, just little lines, little questions we can ask to get people to start thinking. And you'd be surprised what good it will do. A couple of weeks ago, we went to the yard sale in the mile long yard sale, uh, and so we were at this in the parking lot of this church building. And so a guy was sitting there, and when I got close to him, he said, "Do you know Jesus?" I said, "I absolutely do. He's my Lord and Savior." He said, "That's great." And so, it is a line people use. And don't be ashamed or be afraid to use that line because it can open up some conversation. And so we should do that. We should read and study our Bibles, and we should always be ready to give an answer or give a defense for the things that we believe, for the hope that is in us. And so if you can't do that, it's time to start studying and making sure that you can. Well, Satan will say to you, somebody else will do that. And they will. If you don't do it, someone else will. If you don't teach the Bible class, somebody else will step up and do it. But you know what? That does not relieve your responsibility. When you have the opportunity and you have and you have the ability, you have responsibility. And so if you're at the point in your Christian life where you could teach a Bible class and you have the opportunity to teach a Bible class and you don't, then God's going to hold you accountable for that. Yeah, somebody else might do it, but you have passed up a good opportunity. Some of these folks that teach classes and those of us who preach will tell you the person who is putting the lesson together learns more than anybody. And that is absolutely the truth. Because we have to learn it and we have to be ready, to present it in a way that's understandable. And we have to be ready for any questions that might come our way. Satan will say, well, those people are not interested anyway. So don't waste your time. Satan gets people with that one too. You look at somebody and you make that judgment. Oh, they wouldn't be interested. You don't know. You don't know where those people are in their lives, what they need. God knows. Let me ask you something. In the parable of the sower, where did the sower sow the seed? Everywhere, right? He wasn't picky about where he did it. He didn't say, oh, I won't cast it over there because it won't grow anyway. He put it in the way. He put it on the stony ground. He put it in places where briars and weeds grew up. He sowed it everywhere. Our responsibility is to sow seed. We should not be making judgment on where that seed is sowed. We are just supposed to sow it. So don't let Satan tempt you with that. And one we hear today from the world, your children will figure it out for themselves. Don't worry about teaching them. They'll make their own choices. And that's true, they will. But it won't be the right choices. Because we as parents should be directing them. We should be teaching them the right way. And when we don't, then they learn the ways of the world. And that's the way they will go. And so we have that responsibility. It is not too much for you to teach others. Don't you love others? I think the answer is yes. Do you want them to go to hell? I think the answer is no, we don't. God said he was not willing that any should perish, but all should come to repentance. Your children need direction and a good example to follow. They need it so badly. And so we have to provide that. And like I said before, we always need Bible class teachers. Always. And the world needs to hear about Jesus and how to live righteously. There's so much unrighteous living in this world. And people need to understand that God does not approve of that. So you see how this goes, and it could apply to just about anything. Anything where we have a responsibility to obey a commandment, and Satan tries to keep us from doing that. And so we need to be aware of Satan's devices. And so, I put together just a couple more, and you could add to this list. It is too much for you to help others. And again, Satan might say, well, somebody else will help them, or you don't have time. The same old thing he uses. He will use in this area too. Well, you do have time. If you have time and resources, it is your responsibility to do it. And he will say, it is too much for you to give as you've been prospered. And so he'll try to get you to hang on to your money and not be generous with giving to the Lord. And we know that we are supposed to be generous. We're not supposed to be givers that begrudge what we are doing, but we are supposed to give generously. And we've been studying on Sunday morning in the class about stewardship, Christian stewardship. And when we realize that the things that we think we have, and our possessions and our money and all the things that we say are ours, when we realize that they are not ours, but they belong to God, it makes it easier to give it back to God. It is too much for you to sing and make melody in your heart. And this might keep, and Satan might tempt people in this area so that they don't sing. And so not only do we have the responsibility to sing if we can, but we also have to make melody in our heart. And I love singing, and I've never had a problem just letting it fly, letting it go. Now, I have to be more careful about making melody in my heart, because sometimes I get so caught up in the music and all of that sometimes I lose track of what the message is. But we all have the responsibility to sing and make melody in our heart, no matter what Satan might throw our way. It is too much for you to pray. Praying is something that we should do a lot. And if you're not careful, you'll walk out of your house and Satan will throw so many things at you in a day. And the next thing you know, you hadn't prayed. Satan does it. He knows where your weaknesses are. He knows how to put things in your path to keep you from doing those things. So we have to be aware of his devices and not let him keep us from praying. It is too much for you to read and study the Bible. And again, Satan will say, well, you don't have time. Or that's what I pay the preacher for. Preacher can't do your reading and studying. You're responsible for that. So don't let Satan hinder you from reading and studying the Bible, because he'll tell you don't have time, or there's too many other things going on, or this and that. And like I said before, he knows your weaknesses and he knows how to tempt you. It is too much for you to abstain from sin. We are all tempted. And we're tempted in the things that we're weakest at, because, like I said, Satan knows our weaknesses. And he'll work harder on us than those people out there that don't even go to church. He'll work real hard because he's already got them. And he knows how to keep them. And he wants us to fail. He wants us to sin. He wants us to fall from grace and not be protected by God. It is too much for you to give all control over to God. You know, Satan wants us to feel like we have control. And that's kind of born into us, you know. It takes a lot for us to turn everything over to the Lord. But when we do, we'll be blessed. Yeah, Satan uses the things that are naturally born in us to keep us from turning control over to God. So if there's a problem in your life, turn it over to God. If you have any kind of difficulty, turn it over to God. Turn all of everything you do over to God. Pray to Him and ask for direction. Let Him decide the way you should go, because His ways are the best ways. His ways are higher than ours. And we cannot determine our path, because our path will lead to destruction. So as we conclude, just know that Satan will lie, and he will try to convince you that all of God's commandments are too much for you to do. But do not listen to Satan's lies. Listen to God in the Bible. Take encouragement from fellow Christians. It is not too much for you to obey God, because God's way is not burdensome, and His way is the best way. And righteous living is the best way we can live, and we will please God by doing that. So as I offer the invitation, if you are in need of prayers from the saints, or if we can help you in any way, come while we stand and sing.
There's a line that is drawn.